on Strait. I live in Las Vegas. This is my 1966 MGB. I just purchased it, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, something like that. But it's been too hot to do a whole lot of driving in it. I've only put a few hundred miles on it so far. But I bought it as is because I actually bought it from a local restorer, but I managed to get it before he had a chance to restore it. So I think I got a pretty decent deal, and it does need a little work. I've already fixed the brake lights and the turn signals and the horn, and I replaced the distributor with electronic ignition. But for the most part, it's in remarkably good condition considering its age. It's a Nevada car. According to what I've heard, it actually came from Reno, and it has something I've never seen before, which are chips in the paint with no rust underneath. So it pretty much has to be from Nevada. It's in pretty good shape. I have no clue how many miles are on it. The odometer says about 23,000, but I have no idea how many numbers go in front of that, or if it's even the original speedometer. It's a blast to drive, primarily because it is purely mechanical. There is nothing electronic. There's no computers trying to second guess what you're doing. It has two important anti-theft devices, a manual transmission and a manual choke. There are probably very few young people around today who could even start the car if they wanted to, even though it is really easy to hotwire. Now, the engine, it's a 1966 MGB, but the engine is actually out of a 1973 MGB GT. I have no idea what the history is or how that happened or who did it or when, but it's just interesting that the engine number doesn't match the chassis number. But other than that, the engine seems to be in really good shape. It has good compression, it has good oil pressure, and so far so good. So far I've had no problems with the engine at all. It has the 4-speed transmission with non-synchronized first gear. So that takes a little getting used to. But other than that, it's a quirky little transmission, but it's fun. What I intend to do with the car is just have fun driving it. Because I bought it from a local restorer, and apparently he's a sponsor, it actually came with a first year's membership to the British Auto Club of Las Vegas. And they have regular rides and parades or whatever else they do, so I'm sure I'm going to get involved in some of that. I don't know how much yet, time will tell. But they also have something that's really important, and that's people who know more about it than I do. And so I've already met one guy who says he has a lift in his garage, so I'm waiting to get together with him sometime and adjust my rear brakes and try to get my parking brake working. But other than that, my main plan is just to have fun driving it whenever the weather will allow, So this morning, when it's only 70 degrees outside, the first thing I said is I got to get my MG out of the garage and take it for a drive. So here I am. So I think my next plan is probably take it over to Sunset Park and snap a couple of pictures of it with a nice background. When I was a kid, my father actually had an old 1952 MGTD. Our garage had an MGTD and a Model T Ford. The Model T Ford was totally restored, only driven in parades, but the MG he used to have a great time driving. At one point he sold both of those cars, and we bought a camping trailer for the family to go on vacation. At the time I was only 8 or 9 years old. I have no clue what a sacrifice that was for my dad. But when I was in college, I came home for a couple of weeks with an MGB, and couldn't find my dad one day, so I went outside and found him sitting in the driver's seat of the MGB, just sitting there holding the steering wheel. And so I dangled the keys in front of him and I said, "You want to take it for a drive?" He looked at the keys and looked at the steering wheel, looked at the keys and looked at the steering wheel. He got out of the car and said, "No, I can't afford it." That was the first time I realized how much he loved that old TD. So I guess it was kind of normal that I ended up in an MG, especially because when I was in college and drove that MGTD, it was the first car in my life I ever drove that I can actually fit in. I actually got a 4F from the draft many years ago because I was over the height limit. They measured me at 6'8" and a quarter, and amazingly enough, I fit in this MG even with the top up. So it is what it is. That's why I bought it.